It's altogether too much pleasure to read John Shoptaw's book, Near Earth Object, to read about the beautiful birds, fewer and fewer coming back. He wears his erudition very lightly. It's an erudition in nature and in literature. But he takes us on trips that are too much fun. The world is balancing between hope and despair, and we're enjoying it. The last poem comes off Ovid's Metamorphosis. Phaeton, son of the sun, takes a disastrous chariot ride. And in John's book, the book ends with a 12-section circumlocution of an earth in chaos and despair, and we enjoy the ride. Let's give him a warm welcome, John Shoptaw.
Well, I'm very happy to be here, and I'm so grateful to Joyce Jenkins and Richard Silberg for just keeping Watershed from going dry, and year after year. It's beyond a delight. It's important. So in 2019, a study reported that over the last half century, about a quarter of the North American birds just disappeared from the face of the earth. That's about, I think, 4 billion. This is called For the Birds. For the abundant, along with the rare birds at my feeder of late, for all kinds of birds I've lived with here are turning rarer. For the chestnut-backed chickadee who carries the sunflower chip to the buckthorn to dine on between her toes. For the chickadees once came to my feeder in bunches. For the big round plain brown pair of California towhees who eat in parallel from the bird crumb table. For though they crumb it clean without a glance or a cheep, I believe this remote old couple is as entwined as any two polarized photons. For the fearsome indigo jays, black-hooded and crested, Tapper and Sly, as I call them. For Tapper taps twice on an overhanging plum branch at 2 clucks from my tongue, so I'll know her. For Sly hangs back and shrieks me over, and only shows himself after I place on the table their morning quincunx of unsalted peanuts. For he knows Tapper will quack to announce them, and then squawk indignantly when he slyly swoops in for the vast majority. For the dark-eyed juncos, the wide-eyed titmice, the narrow-eyed, red-breasted nuthatches, who feed right side up, as they see it, the other birds upside down. For Audubon's, yellow-rumped, Wilson's, and Townsend's warblers, nobody's birds, who feed, drink, and breed as they can. For the song sparrow's song, and the sparrow who exults in singing it. For a song, how long will that phrase mean what it means? For them all, I refill the feeder, even this morning, when all blown down things crack underfoot, and the Diablo wind seems to growl diabolically and scrape from all corners at once against a sky the color of flint. For the lesser goldfinches, symbolically fierce, who part their beaks at any other kind who would peck a chip in their presence. For the pine siskins, their symbolic match, who used to expose their underwings back at them with the dreadful yellow stripe. For 2 years running, no siskins at the feeder. For the brown-crowned, as yet unkindled sparrows, wintering from Oregon or the Farallon Islands, I sing my two-note welcome, hello, pointless, for they won't learn it with my face masked against wild smoke migrating from the north. For the species too little or big or otherwise unsuited for the feeder. For Anna's hummingbirds, who love to suck on our pineapple sage. For the red-tailed hawk perched in the smoke-fogged redwood. For soon it'll be pestered by a twister of crows calling, hawk, 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 hawk. For a red-tailed hawk, I mistook it. Something larger, ruffled, molten. For the golden eagle, it turned out to be weird, hunched in the chill. For another flew up out of thick air and followed it south out of eyeshot. For those two, not migrants, evacuees clasping their emotional baggage. For the birds, then, what have I to offer? For what kind of refuge is my catalog? For I can't reckon how to make good their losses. For I meant not to make a life list, I meant for others to partake in my pleasure. For it pleases me to look after the birds. Thank you. This poem I wrote during the drought years when we didn't have those April showers, to pierce the March drought. It's called Dry Song. The drought has pierced to the tan oak root, where the wine tastes like wildfire smoke. It pierces the aquifer with an almond drill, scatters the chances of precipitation with the young sun on the tender crops, and discovers in the lake bed a gold rush town. If I knew the Sierras folded snow on snow, I could find the pass from shut-eye to sleep. But the drought has pierced to the mountain root and shown me rock under the shrunken mantle, and sand it fed to the river mouths, barring salmon on their reds from salmon in the sea. Atmospheric river, radar vapor, damp ghost of the Sacramento. Why, only days of speechless blue, forest numb with riddled pine. This poem is called Poulter's Measures, which is an Elizabethan form of couplets, 12 syllable followed by a 14, 12 beat followed by 14, something like a baker's dozen, Poulter's Measures. We play with our trucks out back in the dirt, where plump red hens peck for bugs, but keep clear of the hackberry stump. Then checkers on linoleum in the kitchen, where Chuck's mom in a red house dress turns. Cornflake fried chicken? I grew on the wrong side of the rails, but the right side of the river in Missouri. Chuck on the wrong side of both. Verses such as these make poets cousins of poulters, who'd lay 14 eggs every second dozen. Chickens on Earth outnumber humans 2 to 1, Me, me. She steps out back. I hear a scurry and a thump. A red fact chases me. Chicken comes from chickens. Do I forego lunch? No, I'm starved, and we both love drumsticks. Unlike mass nouns, count nouns can take indefinite articles and plurals. A steer, a lamb, spare-ribbed piglets. In this couplet, I eat my last chicken, the meat newly wrapped for Tompkins Square. California, burritos. In Berkeley, the egg line stands motionless. I'm third behind a woman whose darting looks I don't call bird-like. With her battered empty carton, she hunts and picks through dozens and dozens of prismatic river dog eggs. Time considers passing. I tilt my head and view her soiled carton brimming with shells unfathomably blue. I'm a pescatarian, I tell somebody, studying me through our shaving mirror. With my oddly uneven, hen-fed eye teeth, grown in years ago. We're an unlikely couple, more than one, fewer than two. Thank you. The motto is not you are what you eat, but you are what you ate. This one is called Vertigo, after the Hitchcock film and the dizzying sensation, and it goes back to the terrible fire season of 2020. Madeline drove Scotty down the peninsula and parked her green Jaguar at the sunny brink of the Big Basin redwood forest, which makes its own atmosphere like a planet, verdant with fog and giddy with oxygen. They enter in silence its dark, cinematic hush and walk among trees grown to a vertiginous height, stopping before a broad sequoia cross-section with dated growth rings. 1066, Battle of Hastings. 1930, tree cut down. 1958, filming of Vertigo, floats a little beyond the fibrous red bark, like a vapor. Looking at it feels like looking down into an incredibly deep well that perspective narrows into a funnel. This foreshortening of the historical abyss into the present is what film buffs call the Hitchcock zoom, when the camera backs out and zooms in, or zooms out and closes in, so that viewers suddenly become aware of the scene, impinging on or casting off from its focal character. Usually, it's hard to see the climate for the days, but an unreal weather event, like the dry lightning storm that shook out her hissing coils over a drought-wrung California, sparking a swarm of wildfires overnight that stunned Big Basin down to the granite. That kind of experience will zoom the overlying climate into focus for a moment and bathe us in an icy astonishment, as though the earth looked around and saw it was the only planet swaddled in habitable gases. But nothing can keep on knowing like that, so the days look up and move on. The smoke turns away from the bay, and tomorrow they say the weather will be fine. And thank you so much for your kind attention and appreciation throughout. This last poem I wrote with Emily Dickinson, my favorite poet, in mind. It's called After a Cricket. Hope holds despair as much as despair holds hope. Despair has to keep hope out of mind somewhere, like that fine-toothed strumming I heard over lunch from what couldn't have been a cricket. It was too cold in the fall, too sunny in the day. Hope, hard hope, doesn't tune out but listens through despair for sounds of life. For the foreseeable century, the climate will gleam on us with a fixed gleam that breaks down anywhere at once, as any expression will if it's held too long. Over lunch the next day, I heard the same sound, so I went outdoors and followed the strumming to what, sure enough, was a cricket, running one forewing down the other, somewhere in the noonday shade of the braided wisteria vine in pod. I felt his strumming deepened the shade he basked in, but I knew he wasn't playing for me or only to please himself. The next day, nothing. So I went out and I listened to a silence in the shape of a strum. The strummer, I like to think, hadn't given out, but met up with an admirer. His hope would have held. He played like it would never have occurred to him to stop before he was done. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.